right, well, welcome to the Adaptive Accounts breakout session. I hope you guys are all enjoying the sessions we're having thus far. My name is Haroon Rashid. I'm the Adaptive Accounts Software Development Manager. I've been part of the platform team for about 3 years now. And as you can see, we have a full lineup of presenters here. They're going to be presenting with us. So, what are we going to cover today? We're going to talk about Adaptive Accounts. How is it relevant to you? What kind of problems can it solve for you? And we'll dive right into some of the APIs. And we'll have Ali Bawani, who is the lead developer on Adaptive Accounts, discussing with you how the interactions and the flows work for the APIs. Thirdly, we're going to have some of our partners who we consider some of our early adopters, sharing some of their success stories, things that they've been able to derive in terms of value out of Adaptive Accounts, and how they can share some of those stories with you all. And hopefully you guys will start to use it as well. And finally, we're going to have a Q&A session at the end, and I would kind of like to ask every one of you to please hold your questions until the end. We have a lot of material to go through, and try and save a bunch of time for you guys for the question and answers. All right, so with show of hands, I want to ask, first off, how many of you were at the PayPal Developer Conference last year in Innovate 09? And how many of you guys currently either are familiar with or use adaptive payments? All right, we have a handful over here. And adaptive accounts. Okay, so adaptive payments is obviously the #1 step for a lot of you developers. When we announced adaptive payments about 1.5 years ago, we had some of our early adopters, and the problems they faced early on were involved in getting started, getting going, getting integrations, understanding the space. But as these companies started to grow, their problems started evolving, and those are good problems. Problems dealing with a growing business, understanding how to scale. And that's where Adaptive Accounts comes in. One of the interesting bits of data that a lot of our early adopters are experiencing when they started seeing some of their early successes was shopping cart abandonment. They'd have a number of users and prospective customers coming in, browsing around the applications and their sites, and seeing a number of these users walking away without a transaction. And a number of these users are folks who do not have PayPal accounts. So it's a very disruptive experience for them to have to browse around, go to the PayPal website, create an account, and go back. That's where Adaptive Accounts has a Create Account API. The Create Account API essentially helps you streamline the account creation process within that user experience and not keep it disruptive. The second level of problems that we started experiencing, or a lot of these partners would experience, in particular those who were having phenomenal success with their applications and had a number of users come through, is fraudulent activity. And that's certainly something that you don't want to have to worry about. It's something that we can help you understand who these customers are, who these prospective users are. So for that, we heard a lot of the feedback, and we've created a new Get Verified Status API, which allows you to determine the risk level of any particular user. So you can customize and determine how to sell your goods and services to your users. So you can, Ali will talk more a little bit about that. And then thirdly, information theft. This is a core aspect of Adaptive Accounts, where you pass on the risk of the user-sensitive data and have us store that and deal with that, and allow us to actually capture the funding instrument details in the experience, rather than, again, having them go to PayPal account, adding a credit card. And we have an Add Bank Account API as well as an Add Payment Card API, for which we'll be talking about in some more depth. So I'm going to turn it over to Ali Bawani, who's going to help you guys go through the flows of these APIs in more detail. And again, please ask the questions, but after the end of the session. Thanks.
Thank you, Haroon. So as Haroon mentioned, we target and address some real use cases for you, and I'm going to go through some scenarios in which you can use our APIs and try to show you. My aim would be to show you how easy it is to use the APIs, what you need to pass us to accomplish the operations, and what the end-to-end experience is from the end user's point of view as well as your point of view. So let's start with the players. We have 4 players here with the API caller, which hopefully most of you are. You're running a website, a shopping cart, and you are interested in making the platform API calls to your business or to improve your business. We have the end user, who is a current or future PayPal end user with whom you're doing business. And then we have the PayPal API endpoint. This is the endpoint that you use to make the API calls. And finally, we have the PayPal website. This is used to confirm some of the operations that you're performing on an end user's behalf. So these are the players that we'll be talking through in the next few slides. So starting with the Create Account API. This is our core API. As Arun mentioned, its prime function is to enable you to create PayPal accounts as part of your business. One of the concepts being, if you're about to lose a sale because someone doesn't have a PayPal account, this API will let you create the PayPal account right there and then and complete the sale, let you complete the sale, basically. Looking at a slide here, we have the 4 players on top, leftmost starting with the API caller. Next, the end user, the API endpoint, and then the website. So it starts with you first making the create account call. The call, conceptually, is pretty simple. We ask you to send your API credentials, the email address of the end user for whom you're creating the PayPal account, their name, their address, phone number, and the PayPal account type. And that's fundamentally it. Basically, sometimes there's a section called optional details. And if you're and for certain countries, for example, Canada, you need to send a date of birth. That's a regulatory requirement by the government. So that's where the optional detail comes in. Or if you're creating a business account, then you have to send, their tax ID, et cetera, depending on the country. And so our error messages will give you that information. And of course, our user guide will also get you up to date on what fields are necessary for what countries. But conceptually, it's a very simple set of information that you send to us to complete the create account operation. In response, what you get back is a status, i.e. whether the call worked or if it failed. If it worked, you will get a redirect URL back. If it failed, you will get an indication of what errors happened with the call. So considering the success case, you have a redirect URL here, and you will pass this to your end user. The end user in the form, either in the form of just a browser or a pop-up window or Lightbox. So say you opened up a Lightbox or a pop-up window. What the end user will see is this window here. Their email address is pre-populated, and all they have to do is enter their password in twice. When they click Agree and Continue, at that point, they have a PayPal account. The window will disappear, and they will be back on your site. And that's all there is for Create Account. Pretty simple experience. Next, I'm going to talk about the Get Verified Status API. As Harun mentioned, the use case for this API is to enable you before a transaction to make this call and to verify that the PayPal customer you're dealing with is actually has a verified PayPal account. You get fraud protection and better seller protection if you deal with verified customers. So you make this call, and so the players here are pretty simple. You have the API caller on the leftmost side, you have the end user, and you have the PayPal API endpoint. So as part of doing business with a given end user, they will most likely give you their first name, last name, and email address. So that's the first step. You must have that information, and I'll describe in a moment why you must have all 3 bits of information. Let me do that now. The reason being, we did not want to make this API a fisher's, dream come true. We didn't want them to target emails for which there are verified PayPal accounts and send them targeted phishing emails or something like that. So we want you to know a little bit about this end user before you can call this API. So we're saying this person is doing business with you. You must know their first name, last name, and email address. And if you get all 3 details right, you pass them to us as part of the request, along with your API credentials, of course. In response, you'll get one of 3 things. You'll get whether the account is PayPal verified or not verified, or the can't say response, which comes back as unable to get PayPal account details. Reason being, if the first name, last name, and email address do not match a unique PayPal account, the can't say response is what you get back. And that's all there is to that API. Next, we come upon the two funding instrument APIs. As mentioned in the use cases for you, these are the scenarios where you're worried that your site might be subject to attacks because someone knows that you have funding instrument details hiding behind your site, and you want to, or you want to use PayPal as your billing processor, funding instrument processor. So you have existing PayPal customers. Maybe the scenario is you create a PayPal account for them, and then you take their funding instrument details that you had on your site and pass it to PayPal and use PayPal as a payment processor henceforth. So the first API in that suite is the Add Bank Account API. We have the players up here again, the API caller, the end user, the PayPal API endpoint, and the website. Before you can call this API, you must have the end user's consent that you're sending their information to a different site. So that's where that step is. Then you make the request, and the request, again, comprises of your API credentials, their PayPal email address, and this blob called bank details. We tried to make this API pretty easy for you to use. So it actually, depending on country, we tried to use terminology that actually makes sense to you as the API caller. If you're primarily a US-based business, you're used to dealing with routing numbers and account numbers. Well, that's what the API asks for in the US countries. If you're dealing with certain European countries, we ask for you to provide us the IBAN number. In the UK, it would be the sort code and account number. So basically, the API, depending on country, asks for bank details that are relevant for that country instead of giving you a dictionary and making you look up fields that map to the PayPal API parameter name versus what the thing is actually called in the country. So that's why we tried to make it easy for you to use. So you send us the request. Response comes back as a status, whether it worked or it failed. If it failed, it will have some response, reasons as to why it might have failed. Maybe the formatting didn't work. Maybe we expect routing numbers to be 9 digits or 10 digits in the US, and you sent us a 4-digit routing number, something along those lines. And if it worked, you get a redirect URL. The redirect URL, as before, you must pass to the end user because you added a bank account to the end user's PayPal account. Now they must confirm this operation before the operation actually completes. And it's not just enough that they confirm it implicitly. We ask them to actually log in as the first step. So when they go to the redirect URL, they log into their PayPal account. They are shown their bank details. Since this is a US account, we are showing them the routing number that you sent on their behalf and last 4 digits of their account number. And in most countries, we are actually able to look up the bank name as well. So you see that the bank name is pre-populated correctly for the routing number in question. When they click Continue, they're shown the page that says, for banks, if you're familiar with PayPal, you would know that the way PayPal really confirms ownership of a bank account is it sends 2 random deposits to that bank account, and the end user must go to the bank account, log in, look up those deposits, and re-enter them on their PayPal account. So that's what this page is telling them to do next. So that's what happens in this case. And notice the link at the end that says return to, in this case, Bing. But the API call has parameters called return URL and return URL description. Most of our APIs are uniform in this manner in that they have these parameters to enable you to return the end user back to your site when they're done with the operation. So that this is the return. The Bing here is basically the return URL description parameter, and return URL being the actual URL that will. So basically, at the next step, they are back on your site. Finally, we have the Add Payment Card API. Same kind of concept, same players. You have the API caller, end user, PayPal API endpoint, and the website. As usual, you get their consent before you send the payment instrument to us on their behalf. You send us the details, and same sort of thing. Card details, again, are localized for the country in question. So again, for the US, it would be the card number and expiry date and billing address. For the UK, if their issue number still applies to the card in question, you would need to send that. We also support certain private label cards for some European countries. So you send that information. The response is again the same. You get a status, and you get a redirect URL back. The end user goes to that, logs in, sees the card details. Now, the card detail confirmation process is a little different. The card is available for use right away, but we didn't need to verify physical ownership. So at that point, the end user must enter in the CVV number of the card in question and change or update the billing address as they see fit. So they have opportunity to add the whole new billing address if they so choose, or change it, or select one different one from their account. Click Add Card. They get an acknowledgement saying the card has been added, and at that point it's ready to go. So the card is available for purchases, what have you, right away. And then they're back on your site to complete the transaction that you were starting with them. So that takes care of the APIs here. Now I'd like to introduce you to Dennis Pereira. He's the business manager for Netherlands, and he worked with the Marktplaats site in Netherlands to integrate the Adaptive Accounts APIs with the Marktplaats site. Welcome, Dennis.
Hi, everybody. I would like to share a very interesting case from the Netherlands. It's the largest classified site in the Netherlands, called Marktplaats in proper Dutch. The problem we were facing is we want to facilitate the fact that users of the classified site can open an account without leaving the platform. And fortunately, we're able to do that by using the new API, Create Account API. And I would like to show you a short video how we did it.
It'll take a moment to load here. Should be fine.
Anybody know any jokes?
You want to get that one out?
Welcome. We invite you on a journey to the Netherlands, where we are integrating PayPal on the most popular classifieds platform. This is the Netherlands. It has a population of 16 million. And this is Marktplaats.nl, part of the eBay Classifieds Group since 2004. With 6 million unique visitors a month, it is the most popular e-commerce website and one of the top 10 strongest brands. There are more than 8.7 million live listings on Marktplaats at any given time. Every second, 3 new listings are placed. That's 300,000 every day. Place, bid, and pay. Marktplaats offers their users a fully integrated PayPal checkout flow for easy and safe transaction between buyers and sellers. At this moment, approximately 40,000 users are browsing for products on Marktplaats. To show interest in a specific product, the buyer can either contact the seller or place a bid. So let's place a bid for this iPad. When the seller accepts the bid, he can directly create a PayPal payment request to the buyer. The buyer will accordingly receive a payment request email in which his bid is accepted and can now proceed to pay. On Marktplaats, he will see a final confirmation of the product and final purchase price before proceeding to the PayPal checkout environment. The Marktplaats experience is all about personal contact, in which buyers' questions are answered and final price is negotiated. Somewhere in this process, it is important that users start thinking about the payment method. We have touch points all over Marktplaats so that users can quickly learn more about PayPal. The PayPal Hub informs users about the advantages of buyer protection and buying with PayPal on Marktplaats, and will guide users through the Create Account process. Users can continue shopping just a second later. While still within the Marktplaats environment, users simply fill in their personal details. At PayPal, they can create a password and add a funding source. Back at Marktplaats, a confirmation message is shown and users can continue browsing for products. It's that simple. So what does that exactly mean for the consumer? An integrated account creation process causes less dropout and increases conversion. Users remain in the Marktplaats flow, improving user experience and customer satisfaction. Users are now prepared for their first transaction on Marktplatz, and PayPal will be their preferred payment of choice. The account creation API is here for us today. But where are we tomorrow? To satisfy user experience even more, we expect product updates which minimize steps in this process and offer even more functionalities. With the support of partners, we are now exploring other platforms. Merchants can use the API to minimize dropout and earn revenue by acquiring consumer and business accounts. It's that easy.
Thank you, Dennis. I wanted to clarify one additional item. You saw that there was a different version of the flow than what I showed you. So we have choices in the Create Account API. That was a full flow that instead of a pop-up window, it can open a full browser, and it enables them to add a credit card right away at the site instead of you making a separate call and after collecting the details. So we offer choices in how the Create Account experience can be customized for your application and for your end user cases. Now, I'm going to go next to the Salesforce integration. So I'm going to introduce Tom Bueno, who's the PayPal Salesforce Technology Manager, and he's going to talk about the Salesforce integration with PayPal Adaptive Account.
Thank you, Ali. So just take a couple minutes here to help you understand how we use this technology to increase productivity significantly and also reduce merchant abandonment of the PayPal account signup. So internally at PayPal, we had a problem where we had a very manual merchant acquisition process. We use Salesforce.com as our merchant acquisition CRM, and it being a cloud-based platform, it did not speak to the PayPal platform. So what we had to do was we had to talk verbally the merchant through the process. They would have to go to PayPal.com, do the physical sign up, and then once they had signed up, we would have to manually go back into the back-end systems and look up the PayPal account information and then put it back into Salesforce.com so that the sales agent could then get compensated, and the sales agent, we could also push the financials back and forth. We could tell when the merchant activated, we could tell what the financials, what the flows were, what products they had. And so this was a very cumbersome process, and it was in excess of 30 minutes in addition to the sales cycle to complete this process. And for years, we had, as the Salesforce technology team, been trying to identify a way that we could speak to our back-end data systems at PayPal, and due to the site security and the thing that makes us safe and secure, a cloud-based solution cannot speak to that platform. So when the possibility came up for us to integrate with the Adaptive Accounts API, we took advantage of it. We hired a Salesforce developer from out in the field. I hired an additional person to my team with no prior PayPal experience. So what we tried to do was to make this as true a real-life scenario as possible. Somebody from out in the field. She used the developer technical support that would be available to all of you folks. She used the documentation that would be available to all of you folks. And she used no internal resources that would not be available to any of you folks. What we did was we ended up integrating with the Adaptive Accounts platform. We enabled merchants to complete the sign-up. So rather than talking the merchant through the sign-up process, we enabled our agents to actually go ahead and gather that information, them being the product expert, and enter that information into Salesforce.com in a simple two-click process. They would submit the account on behalf of the merchant. The merchant would then get an email to activate their account. Once it was activated, their account information would be systematically pushed into Salesforce.com, all via the API, creating a complete closed-loop process. And then again, once that information was pushed back into Salesforce.com, that gave us the ability to push all of our PayPal-specific information back and forth via our other integration methods. So what we ended up with was a simple two-click process. We have a custom object on Salesforce.com called a PayPal account. We collect specific information there. We click on Submit PayPal Account. Once we do that, a verification screen comes up. We make sure that all the relevant information is included, and we hit Submit. Immediately, we get a response that tells us whether it was successful. And once it's been successful, the relevant information, PayPal payer ID and those email ID, those things come back into the system and tell us that it was successful. It enables the complete closed loop process. What did this get us? A 20% increase in productivity for our internal sales agents. It was a very simple integration. Like I said, we hired somebody who had no previous PayPal product experience. It was her second week, I believe, with the company. So we proved out that it was a simple process, that it could be done by a developer who just came in, whose focus was not even finance. It was not even payments. It was Salesforce.com. And she completed the integration. We reduced agent call time by an average of 15 minutes a call. If you take 8 calls a day, it's 2 hours. And then we eliminated the need for swivel chair data entry. We estimate we spent about 10 minutes per call going back in, searching the system, and then copying, pasting the information back into Salesforce. So very simple process. Huge increase in productivity. It's live in Europe, and it is in beta in North America, and it's actually it's what they live. I learned right before the conference that everybody's using it, so I guess it's a beta that took off. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Tom. Finally, I'd like to introduce you to Clayton Bain from MedPay Online. He's the head architect, and he's going to talk about his company's integration with the platform APIs.
Thanks, Al. My name is Clayton Bain, work with MedPay Online. We are a payment facilitator for hospitals, clinics, and doctor offices. One of the things Tom was saying about the process being cumbersome, that was something we experienced a lot. So a provider, medical provider, needs to sign up with both MedPay and PayPal to process payments. And previous to the Adaptive Accounts product, we used to have to do a very similar thing where we were manually entering PayPal accounts. We try to guide doctors through this, but they're not very technical savvy. They're great at treating people, but not so good at doing anything related to businesses, which is pretty much why we're in this healthcare mess that we're in. With that being said, with Adaptive Accounts, it put everything together into one process. So the second that they would sign up for a MedPay account, they would also sign up for a PayPal account. And so one of the things that is really the benefit of it for us is that there's no customer interaction. So if you could picture how we generate most of our business and new clients, it's through value-added resellers, receivable management companies, billing companies, clearinghouses, other businesses that sit in the medical arena. And so what this product would help us do is when they would refer us to a new client, they would be able to hook into our APIs and essentially create a new PayPal account or refer them back to our sign-up page. Where we would create a new PayPal account as well. One of the new things that you can see here kind of on the lower right down there is a mini browser, and that really helps our process out as well. So generally speaking, the less you're redirecting people to other pages, the easier things become. And so it's pretty easy for them to sign up without leaving our site. So less confusion, less customer service calls, generally easier. And the other true benefit of this is because now that we're not dealing with the providers every time that they sign up for an account, it gives us the ability to really mass market. So soon we are starting off our first big huge sales campaign, and we're moving away from just doing the sign-ups through the value-added resellers. And so we're really excited about that, and this product certainly enables all that. And long term, one of the other goals that we have is I just came from the business pricing panel, but one of the problems with business pricing to date is that you can't utilize it unless you have a PayPal account. And so it's going to be a really cool feature for us to sort of build a flow where you can use the adaptive account process and then move right into the business payment process. Saves a lot of cost and generally helps us out in a lot of different ways. So that's it.
Great. Thank you, Clayton. I'd like to conclude by saying I hope this presentation was worth your time. We wanted to show you how easy it was to use the APIs, what problems we are targeting to solve with this API. And finally, we hope you use the API. And with that, the presentation is ended, and we'll open it up for question and answers. Sure, go ahead.
I have two questions. One, obviously, this is...
Sorry, there's a microphone here, too. So.
Thank you. Yes, I have two questions. First of all, obviously, this is for those scenarios where the customer doesn't have a PayPal account, right? So you first ask, do you have a PayPal account, or do we need to create one for you? And then if yes, you would use this, right? So this is an exception kind of to the normal flow.
Not necessarily. You could know beforehand if they don't have a PayPal account, right? So you could, what we've seen in certain experiences is you have a button that says, I already have a PayPal account. They click on that, they enter the details, they do the checkout, they're done. Or sometimes you have a second link on your site that says, I don't have a PayPal account. And that's when you call the API. You already have their information. You make the API call, redirect them, or pop up a light box with the confirmation details. And they have an account already in existence.
That's actually exactly what we do. Is right before we get to sign
sorry,
up.
want to be
That's actually exactly what we do. Right before they get to the portion, I guess the end of the sign-up page, we ask them whether or not they have a PayPal account. They just write it in, and then we don't go through the whole mini browser and sign up API. If they do, or if they don't have a PayPal account, then we start the flow that I kind of outlined there.
Okay, and for a second question, maybe you can also chime in on that. It would be great to hear some business use case examples, because for me it seems like as a vendor or merchant who accepts payments, I have a customer who comes in. If they choose PayPal, for me it's kind of an auxiliary way to accept payments because they want to do PayPal. But if the customer isn't asking for PayPal, they don't already have a PayPal account, it seems to me I would just take a credit card. Why would I go through this trouble to create a PayPal account for the customer instead of just taking a credit card? Unless the customer wants to do PayPal to begin with.
So I guess sorry, go ahead.
One way we do it in Holland is we do revenue sharing. So the merchant is not only making money by getting the transactions, but also getting new accounts. And you even have revenue share models where you get a percentage of the payment volume. So there's a lot of interest from merchants or any other sites to integrate and get new users for PayPal as well. So that's a financial incentive.
From PayPal.
Exactly. I don't know whether this is globally or anything, but that's how it works in our market.
Go ahead.
This is for Ali. Comparing the description you gave of the API to something like website payment standard, on your description, the customer comes to my website, and then we have to ask them some questions, and then they still have to go to the PayPal website. Mm-hmm. And if they don't trust the PayPal website, the transaction's dead. But under the situation you described, when they come to my website, evildoer.com, the first thing I do is I ask them for bank account information. And as much as they trust PayPal, they may not trust me at all. Right. So isn't that a big disadvantage of using the API? Wouldn't we be better off just saying, we never see your information, trust PayPal?
Sure. And so there are a couple of use cases. The Ad Bank API, as I mentioned, is specifically for the use case where you want to move on to using PayPal as your payment processor. So you already had their payment information, and due to, maybe you're worried about your site getting compromised because people know that you have banking information, you pass the risk on to us. So that's the primary use case for the Ad Bank and Ad Payment Card scenarios. And for the case where you're creating a new account and you want them to add a card right away, the Marketplace video that we showed, where the full page browser shows up, they enter in their password, and then they have the opportunity to enter in the credit card right away. That's the case for newcomers. So, if you're a newcomer and you want to use PayPal primarily for payments, for your payment processing, and you want them, therefore, to have a PayPal account, this is the way to do it. So, as I mentioned, the Ad Bank and Ad Payment Card are primarily targeted for the case where you want to pass the risk of payment processing to us.
So I'd like to conclude by asking you all to check us out on X.com. There's a lot more information about our APIs and how to use them, and we're always open to feedback on how we can continue to improve and meet your needs as customers. Thank you very much for attending.